My college life seemed completely normal. Go to parties, hook up with girls, drink a bunch, go to class so you can get a degree and one day make a lot of money.
This dream of being a doctor and having a white picket fence was kind of the dream that was spoken to me every single day.
I had this experience and realized that this world does not revolve around me. I told Doug, look man, you know me, you know how messed up my life is, but this Jesus guy says that we're supposed to go to the ends of the earth and tell people about him.
Ethan brought up this idea for a trip that he had, to get a group of guys and travel around the world to do good things and help people who needed help and talk about Jesus. I remember somebody telling me, hey Doug, this is a really cool idea, but I've heard so many things like this before. What makes this different than that? What makes you think that this is actually going to happen? And the only answer I had for him was, it just is.
I still didn't feel like I could go. I still felt like at the end they were gonna say, you didn't really think you were gonna go on this. After everything you've done, you think that we'll send you to other people in other countries?
This was becoming so overwhelming for me and so exhausting because my whole life I've always felt like I needed to prove myself.
We were planning this trip, and while all that's going on, I kind of started dating a girl. It turned into a bit of a harsh reality for me. I had all of these things that I sort of thought were gonna be figured out, and I've got nothing figured out, and before I know it, I'm gonna be getting on a plane and actually leaving for a year.
We were ordinary guys, but at the base of it, we knew that we wanted to go out and live in a way that's completely different.
This was about a story much bigger than me.
We're going to Haiti.
We're going to Belize.
We're going to Fiji.
We're going to India.
We're going to Uganda.
We're going to Burundi.
We're going to Zambia.
And we're going to finish it off in South Africa before we head home.
It was surreal at that airport. We had anticipated a lot and been so excited, and we put the work in, and we had the idea of what the year would be, but we truly had no idea what we were in for. Welcome to the Afterthoughts podcast, episode 74.
74, E, we made it.
We're just so far up there now. #1 podcast this month on YouTube. Thanks to everybody who watched.
Congratulations.
This episode is sponsored by Pine House Pizza,
Yes,
because we just ate it,
we did.
and the Philadelphia Eagles.
Please,
Fly,
Lord.
Eagles, fly.
Please, God.
If they lose, we've been Old Testament guys recently.
Oh yeah.
If the Chiefs win again,
Hmm.
I will. This is dramatic to say. I will probably accept that God has turned his back on this country.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's done with us.
And I will tear my robe and shave my head.
Yes, I will cover both of us in ashes. I will be so upset, but I know it's coming. I know it's coming.
It's coming.
I'm bracing for impact, which you're not supposed to do, but I am. Let's talk about that.
Did you learn nothing
Last
weekend?
week we had Sean Johnson,
Shout out to Sean,
who's the man,
the best guy
and
ever.
I feel like he said so many great things, and then Doug always has such good things to say that we didn't ask him to be on this episode. So
Yeah.
we could just chat.
We're the other guys.
Kind of tired of those guys. They're always saying great things.
They're so good at what they do, aren't they?
Yeah, good for them. Before we get into today's content and we let Kayla on the mic, we're 2 weeks, about week and a half out of the fast.
Yeah.
And I remember when we used to go on mission trips in college, you're like, the last day of the mission trip, you're like, I'll never forget this experience. My life's going to be different. I think a fast can feel that way.
Hmm.
And then you look back a few weeks later and you're like, oh, I kind of drifted back into just how things were before the fast. And maybe there's some changes that have been made, maybe there's not. But how do you help people to even stop in the first place and go, oh yeah, remember that really profound, cool 21 days that you spent? How do I keep that with me? If right now I'm feeling like, what was that?
Yeah.
What was that for? Did I lose all that fire, all the things that were shifting in my life?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to realize that permanent shifts are made in 21 days of prayer and fasting. It may not feel like it. And when you get back to normal life, you may feel like you've just swung the pendulum all the way to the other side. God was working in your life for those 21 days. So rest in that. Now, number 2, I think one of the saddest pieces, the most tragic pieces of a fast are how people end the fast. And I've made this mistake so many times. And so I'm preaching to myself. But I think the biggest place to start is to continue to practice gratitude, because when you're fasting, you become so grateful for food. We ended the fast at your place. We had every bite of that steak that we were taking, like we savored it. Our friends dropped off cookies. Did we talk about this last week? Maybe we did.
No.
There was a knock on the door during dinner, and it was Tiff's Treats, and we had chocolate chip cookies warmed up, and it was one of the most like sacred moments.
Not trying to be dramatic once again. That's really it seems like my theme for this episode. Don't want to be dramatic. That first bite of a warm chocolate chip cookie
was unbelievable.
Is some of the closest I felt to being on New Earth.
Yeah.
It was like, I didn't know something could taste this good, right? Like you always hear like things are going to be elevated and better and it's going to be perfect, all that stuff. I was like, this is about as close of a bite as I've gotten. That bite of steak and that bite of a cookie. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
It was heavenly.
Now,
quite literally.
So you could 10 days later just be like, oh yeah, it's a chocolate chip cookie. I've had it all the time. Mm-hmm. Or you could stop and take each bite slowly and try to really like taste the whole, use your taste buds, experience the whole thing. Yeah. Like it's still possible to maintain that gratitude. You just have to learn to be a little more intentional about it. So like I just had my first bite of pizza in a long time. Mm-hmm. And it would be really easy for me just to be like, oh yeah, we need fuel for the afternoon. Or you stop and you go, pizza is amazing.
It's amazing. It's going to be regrettable on my end, but it was good to try pizza
on your end. But I think gratitude is the number one way to keep the momentum going. And then just very simply, remember how good you felt when you weren't on social media. You should do that more.
I think that's the challenge out of it. A 21-day fast of anything is extreme, right? You're like, I'm going to eat food again.
Yeah.
There are some life shifts that happen during that extreme time that I think are meant to stay. And I think it's good to re-challenge people 10 days later when you're kind of getting conformed back to the patterns of the world and everything feels normal again and I just kind of do what I always did. Or of course, I'm getting back on social media. But I would ask some serious questions like, was your life healthier without it? Because that is something you can go without. You don't have to have it in your life. Or maybe you say, well, I do need it for work or I want to be on there in some capacity. Okay, how do you structure to still fast it? Like allow yourself a certain amount of time a week or certain days of the week that you'll go on the app or whatever. How can you take the truth of what happened during the fast and apply it when you get back to normal life?
It's great.
The things that God does and says in a fast are to be trusted. And the things that you feel led in, I think, are to be trusted more than the things that you decide in normal life. And it'd be easy to go, I was really hungry or I was really like bored or whatever. Like I just kind of felt like those things, but I don't know if that's realistic. Because now that I'm back to the way things normally are, I don't know if I agree with that. I would trust what you said during the fast
100%.
Way over those things.
I always tell people when they're trying to make a big decision, it's like, how do you feel when you're praying? How do you feel when you're worshiping? How do you feel when you're fasting? How do you feel when you're on a mission trip and you're undistracted?
Yeah.
Like those are the moments where you can trust, you have a heightened amount of discernment in those moments, and then you get back into the craziness and the chaos. And it's so easy to be like, well, maybe I was just like on some mountaintop high or whatever. And it's like, well, thank God Moses brought what he experienced up on the mountain back down into normal life. And wasn't like, oh, it's probably just some experience up there. It's like those mountaintop moments are for a reason.
And while he was fasting up on the mountain, look at what everyone else was doing in normal life and where that led them, just kind of getting their focus off of God.
Two very different
directions.
Making a golden
calf and worshiping idols all of a sudden while he's up there in the glory of God and brings that to them and corrects everybody. So trust what happened during the fast. Carry it with you. Find ways to practically apply that. Because otherwise, it'll be next January when the fast comes up again. And I think you get more excited for it because you're like, man, that was such a good time as hard as it was. Yeah. But man, I hope your life doesn't look exactly the same as when you started the fast this year.
Good.
Any other takeaways from fasting this year? One of mine is how grateful I am for my sense of smell.
Go.
There are times where it's like, I'm making my kids a PBJ and I would just inhale a smell of peanut butter. And it was like, okay, there's a little was like I had a bite almost just smelling it. So I was very grateful for my sense of smell.
I love that. I think portion control. Like there's still something in me that is like, hey, if the food is there, we have to eat it because we don't know if we're gonna have it. And I'm very fortunate that that's never been true about my life, like logistically and logically. But that like survival mode is so real, man, that it's like, well, no, you gotta absolutely finish it. And I think there's something to learning how to leave that, and learning how to not have to the art of leaving a meal a bit unfinished. That might, for some people, they might be like, what are you talking about? But that's like a real thing for me. Is it always feels like, well, you got to finish what's on your plate. It's like, well, not always, you know, and not necessarily. And that is, I understand where that logic comes from, but it's good to question that logic, especially if that's not always true. And if everything that's on your plate is not necessarily good for you, then that's actually not good logic at all.
Yeah.
So gratitude, portion control. Like every time I have a big lunch, like I overeat at lunch, my afternoon is so much less productive.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, so why do you keep doing that? You know? And so it's been really fun for me to just be more conscious of decisions I make when it comes to food.
It zooms you out to question kind of why you do the things you do. And structure has been a huge takeaway for me of restructuring my life around a lot of the things that actually led to a very fruitful time. We talked about some of this a few weeks ago, but like I've always in the morning wanted to make sure I got my workout done because that really starts my day well. Always with the intention of before that spending time with God, getting in the Word, prayer, and how often I kind of bypass that. So now I have an alarm clock set and it is a non-negotiable. I will first read my Bible and pray and journal. That's been a big takeaway, is getting back to that.
Nice, dude.
So that you remember stuff and you go back to it. And I can go read what God was saying during that fast and not be like, did I imagine some of that? But like, no, I remember the day I wrote this down. I'm doing that before I do anything else. Everything else, I can give up. This is what I rely on most. And I also was just reminded of something that's so true and we know it, but we forget it. God is always speaking to us. I am rarely undistracted enough to hear him and just listening. I had so many moments of like a nudge from God, a picture, like spiritual, like closeness with him and feeling like I know what to do from here. That's always there. I'm just too clouded by all the worldly stuff.
We live in this is the noisiest the world has ever been. And so being a disciple and making disciples in this day and age is challenging.
Yeah.
And what you realize when you start to like turn the volume of the world down is that God is speaking still constantly.
Yeah.
And so absolutely, man, it's so difficult to remember. Like for me, it's when my to-do list gets crazy and I've got like 20 different things I need to do. I start to get nervous about the time of like slowing down and sitting in stillness or praying or whatever. Like I don't have time for that.
Right.
What was the famous line? I don't have time not to pray. Or there was like I've got so much to do.
Guys.
I think it's like I've got so much to do today. I better spend the first 3 hours praying or something along those lines. Like it feels so counterintuitive, but when you can actually push through that discomfort and sit with the Lord, you actually find yourself getting way more done in less time and with less stress along the way.
Yep. I know we spent a lot of time talking about fasting the last couple of weeks, but I think it's purposeful to put an emphasis on something that we don't talk about a lot in church in general. And a lot of people don't practice at all. You know, I never really heard much about fasting until years into my faith.
Yeah.
Or just kind of read about it and was like, I don't really know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Sounds hard.
Yeah.
It's probably for the super Christians.
Right. No, start small, start slow. And it's not just a January thing.
Yes.
Thinking through, that's one of the things we've been talking about is, I think you brought this up, of like tithing the first 3 days of each month.
Yep.
So from March 1st to March 3rd, fast at whatever that means for you.
Mhm.
But there's something to like, okay, Lord, we're starting a new month. I'm going to dedicate these first 3 days to you. And I'm going to fast throughout this.
Yeah.
I think you do that for all of 2025, your life will look incredibly different
Yeah.
by Christmas time.
Agreed. Okay. Very good. Kayla,
Hi.
any thoughts on that before you ask us some
Those
questions?
were great thoughts.
Wow, thank you.
But
Wasn't fishing for a compliment. Want to know what you thought.
I think something that you guys had told us before we even started the fast was think hungry, not healthy. And I think that was like a great mind shift for me with this fast and like for the fast to come. So I loved that.
Mm.
So thank you guys.
Yesterday, once we ended the fast, I've been like swung the pendulum with intention, purposeful, but trying to gain some weight back. But I had like an afternoon, I was with my boys and I was hungry and was kind of like, I didn't bring any snack. Like I'm trying to like eat more. And then I was like, you know what? Let's feel this again. It's okay. It's good for me.
Mm-hmm.
And let me, even though I'm on a normal day where I'm going to eat dinner tonight and
Mm.
stuff, I can feel this for the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that'll be a good thing. So hungry, not healthy.
Yeah.
For 2 hours or 21 days.
It becomes easier to sink into the spiritual aspect of a fast the more that you do it.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like when somebody works out a lot, they can like pretty quickly get into that mindset.
Yeah.
As opposed to
yeah.
someone who works out 1 month a year. Like it's very difficult for them.
Yeah.
And so the same thing is true with fasting. Is the more consistent you can be with it, the more it becomes more of a lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, than like this set apart thing that we do for this time where we're trying to be extra holy.
Yeah.
You know, so well said.
Well, now let's do, I guess, a hard transition to my questions.
That's the beauty of this podcast.
That's right.
I guess.
1 minute you're talking deeply about fasting. The next you're being asked a question about a
Yes.
baby hippo.
Hippopotamus.
Or,
I was going to say that too.
No
Wow.
way.
Is
How
it?
fun. One of them is
How fun.
similar-ish that I
Let's start with that one.
That's-
Okay, you wanna start with
Can't
that
wait to
one?
see what it is.
Okay. I found this question online, so I mean it's kind of random, but would you rather travel the country like from one side of the country to the other on either an elephant or a camel?
Whoa.
An elephant or a camel?
Uh-huh.
Well, I think there's a reason why camels historically have been a popular mode of transportation.
Mhm.
They tend, from my very limited research, and by that I mean,
you minored in camel
Yeah,
studies?
yeah.
That's right. Huge camel program at
They don't-
CU
Yeah.
Boulder.
They don't need much water because they can store the water.
There you go.
Right? They're good at carrying things.
Not a lot of pit stops then.
Not a lot of pit stops. They move slow but steady,
Mhm.
as opposed to an elephant that's going to be pretty chaotic. So I'm going to go camel.
All right.
I think that's the correct answer, but I'm choosing elephant because that's been my lifelong favorite animal.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
I just like to spend time with
Yeah.
an elephant.
You and
Be
your
wild.
They're
elephant.
very peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Very,
might,
very big.
Oh yeah.
they might
So you get a great view.
go faster because they're so big. and
Well,
have big steps.
That's like
If
I've
they
always
start
said.
running, that's scary.
Yeah.
There's a proverb I've always lived by. You can go faster with an elephant, but you can go further with a camel.
So true. That's such
Wow.
a good proverb. I love that one. Well, then what's so crazy is my other question. You guys are talking about the fast, and I have would you rather, and then you talked about your like sense of smell. I was like, would you rather give up your sense of smell or your sense of taste?
Ooh.
I think they're so intertwined.
Well, you have to choose one.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just trying to talk
I'm-
it out.
I give up smell. Although one of my favorite things in the world is when you smell an aroma and it reminds you of something from like your childhood or like grandma's house or
Is it,
that cool season. But I'll give up my smell because I
All
just
right.
love taste.
Mhm.
would that mean, but you can only really taste the basic, like salty, sweet kind of taste bud?
I think so much of taste is because of smell. I
Uh-huh.
think, I don't know.
But I lost my sense of taste during COVID for a little bit. And that sucked.
Mhm.
So I guess I'll give up my smell too. But
After
I'm
you
not
just
happy
said-
about this, Kayla. I wish I
Yeah.
didn't have to do this.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Sorry. I'm glad that this is
Can you ask us like a fun would you
coming
rather?
to reality.
Why aren't would you rather's ever like positive, like something that you gain?
Would you rather go on a vacation anywhere you want in
Yeah.
the world, or
So
right
we-
now you get 50 grand?
It's always
Right.
like a bad news type of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, our negativity bias.
Ah.
It takes 3 seconds for a negative memory to
Gosh.
imprint, 15 for a positive. So
Yes. Post
Yes.
fast.
93% of our thoughts are negative. So I don't remember.
Post
Whatever.
fast. What has like been the best food that you've had?
post fest.
Postfastulous.
Remember when I couldn't say that word?
Postfastulous.
That was a bad moment on this podcast for me.
Oh yeah. Call back.
Let's cut back to that clip and watch it.
Best food since?
Yeah.
Other than the first meal
Ye-
of the steak and the cookie.
Yeah.
And
The
all
steak
of
and the cookie.
I mean,
Besides
that
from
was consistently almond butter.
Okay.
almond butter's awesome.
Oh my gosh.
I can't have
I just
peanut
eat by
butter
the
in my
spoonful.
house.
Dude.
I love it so much.
Okay, well, we were talking about nutrition earlier. There's another app called Yuka or whatever you say it. And you can scan the barcode of anything and it'll rate it, how healthy it is, you know?
It's like a percentage, right?
Yeah, it gives you a number out of 100 and then it'll tell you why. So it's like 30 out of 100 bad, red light, and then you click it. It's like these additives and too much sodium or whatever. Even though apparently salt's great now and you just have a 1,000 milligram drink and that's supposed to be good for you. I can't figure out this
All
out.
like the stay salties and stuff, which I feel great when I drink
Yeah,
them.
they're amazing. But yesterday, Zeke at school learned like too much salt's bad for your heart. And he asked me about it in the car. And I was like, I mean, right now, I don't really know what to say.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's why the proverb says you got to guard your heart.
the almond butter that I get at Costco, another sponsor of our podcast, is a 100 out of 100.
Wow.
So
Get out of
a
here.
couple spoonfuls of that, put it on a sandwich,
Yeah.
put it in a protein shake, put it on an apple or banana or whatever. Eat it just out of the jar. It's delicious and healthy.
Yeah.
Delicious and nutritious, as some would say.
Yeah.
I will. I had some grilled salmon a few nights ago,
Wow.
Mm.
and it was
I love
phenomenal.
salmon.
And I was like really proud of myself.
I'm
for it.
proud of you for having it.
Wow, thanks, man.
I love
I
salmon.
was proud of myself for eating salmon.
No, for like prepping it so well.
you grilled it.
Typically, like when
Okay.
I'm like a 5 out of 10. You know, when it comes to
Just
being a
In
chef.
general. Oh, you mean
Yeah,
cooking.
no, 4 out of 10 in general, 5 out of 10 with cooking. And so every time I make something, I'm like, it'll be fine. Like it's gonna be good, but it's not gonna be delicious. This one was delicious.
That's, well,
yeah.
good for
I
you.
love
I'm
that.
glad to hear that.
What type of salmon? I guess we don't have to get into that. Never mind.
Alaskan.
No, like flavor. I like doing like hot honey salmon.
Hot honey.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, what'd you season it with?
Yeah.
That's what she meant to ask. What
Right.
kind of salmon? The fish?
Salt, pepper, lemon. I had some avocado on the side. I had quinoa on it. And then I have this
It's a nice dinner.
yeah, it was really nice. And then broccoli, like steamed broccoli.
Okay. Great
That's a
job.
good night. Good job.
Okay, well, my last question. This is from our girl AJ again, who loves this podcast.
Yeah,
by
she
the way.
does. We got to get her back on.
Yeah.
Contact her agent.
Okay, I will.
See when she's available next.
Yes, I
Yeah.
will.
But low baller.
Yeah.
Tell her we can't
Yeah,
give her
yeah.
much.
Yeah,
Two-
our sponsors are
$2.
Yeah.
a lot of
Like
lip service to the sponsors. You
maybe
know?
a couple packets of AG1 or something.
Something.
Right. Yes. So Ryan, you talked about the AC project in your sermon.
Okay.
And
Yep.
so
Poster for it's right there.
yeah. I don't know if the camera
They-
can see.
Inspiring.
That's the Easter egg that nobody ever knew about.
Now they know.
Back
now
of
all
the
like
heads.
the guys on YouTube are gonna be like, Easter egg in the Afterthoughts podcast. We never knew.
had this poster, this documentary.
Yeah, we knew we were going to be talking
And-
about it.
And all the Pixar movies are connected. So, those are the two topics.
When he dies in Seoul, it turns out he's Woody's grandson or something. I don't know. All right.
Okay.
Sometimes it feels like Kayla's.
Like, why are we doing this?
What is wrong?
What
Like-
is this?
Sometimes it seems like she's talking to us for the first time ever. Like she's just meeting us, and sometimes it feels like she wants to be it the last time she ever talks to us.
She's in the back of her mind. She's like, I have so much work to do.
I have so much to do. Why did I agree to every week sit here for this stupid podcast?
No.
Kayla, how are you?
I have a great time.
And we shouldn't speak for you.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm having a great time. I'm happy to be here.
Good.
Yes.
So you watched the film. What do you want to know?
Oh yeah. Well, this is the question from AJ, and so she wants to know what would you have named the AC project, because you talked about how you didn't like the name.
Yeah, in the sermon, I told a story about a film festival that we can get into. But the trip that we went on in 2012, the documentary we made from it, we were still in the era of our lives. Shout out to Taylor Swift. Just kidding.
Just kidding. Go Eagles.
Go Eagles, fly Eagles, fly. Shout out to Matt Marino.
Shout out to the city of Philadelphia. Generally terrible people, terrible fan base, but we're rooting for you.
But we love them.
We do this week.
And we wanted it to be super creative, which is great. It's always been true about us. What we didn't know is that it's better if the title actually is informative and creative at the same time. That's like a sermon title that is both creative and informative is way better than just creative. And so we called it the AC Project, which is creative and not informative.
To the ends of the earth.
To the ends of the earth.
Not really descriptive.
It's right
Pretty
there.
vague.
So let's see. A better title.
What's interesting is the real theme of it that we took from it was more.
Yeah.
And even in the documentary, at some point we say like, we wanted to find the more that was out there.
That's right.
For us in life, because the college life and American dream and all that stuff was kind of not delivering. So we knew God had more for us. So oddly,
Your
that's our word
last
for the
journal
year.
entry was all about that.
It was all about that. The end of the film.
Do you have it memorized?
We found the more. Oh no, I've long forgotten. I know the beginning. So more, something to do with more, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe we just call it more ends of the earth.
Super good. Yeah.
Super good.
Really informative.
We do a lot different now, but it is what it is.
But here's the thing. We were making fun of it. I'm super proud of it. And we love talking about it because it's a reminder that there's like a progression to all of this, right? Like we had the right heart posture back then. We just didn't have some of the skill sets that we have today. And I hope that 10 years from now, we'll look back on year 6 of Red Rocks Austin and be like, hey, we didn't have a lot of the skill sets. We were making a ton of mistakes, but our heart was in the right place and we were trying to follow this call.
Yeah.
And so shout out to all the creatives out there who are just taking a step today and making something.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. You just
I
keep
like
going.
the story that you guys have told from behind the scenes and you can go in more detail about it, where you're like filming and it's like 3/4 the way through your trip and you're like filming the camera of something and you're like, wait, is this how you actually use it?
Oh, so I'm awful still to this day. Okay, like when I'm walking by like a family and they're like, "Hey, would you take a picture of us?" I get nervous because I'm like, "Yes, but you're not gonna like it because I'm not good at this. I just don't know how to like frame things. I don't know how to do it."
No.
And so we set out in January, and this is August. We were in Uganda.
No. This was February.
Was it?
Yeah, when I split my head open.
My
Maybe you
memory.
Can you see my scar?
Wait.
I just got a haircut.
No, it's a little too long.
Shout out to our sponsor, The Sporting Life, my boy Jackson. Thanks for the haircut.
Haircut looks great.
Nobody said anything.
Good job,
but
Jackson. You got a haircut.
Once I got my one big haircut, now
That's
it's just,
right.
I don't need feedback anymore.
Yeah, well, this makes me feel a little bit better. It was like 6 weeks in.
Oh, that's
And
good.
so
Okay.
Ethan
But I will say after this, we never really gave Ryan the camera anymore.
Okay.
ever. So we were there was a pool on the property that we were in, and the one rule was there was this like old inner tube, and they're like, don't dive through it. And so it's the one thing we wanted to
Or
do.
jump off the roof.
And so we did both of those things. Sorry, Rodney, if you're listening.
Wasn't him who cared.
Yeah, that's right. He was like, yeah, let's do it.
Whatever.
Ethan dove through the inner tube and didn't know that the valve to inflate it was metal,
Rusty and sharp.
and sticking out. And so he's getting out of the pool like nothing's wrong. And I'm like, hey, bud, it's just
I can see your
blood
brain.
everywhere.
Oh.
And
Yeah, all the
so
way down, like all the way down here.
fortunately, Doug is an EMT. I don't know if you knew this. He went through like the whole training and all of that. And he's phenomenal in these situations.
He did good.
I'm the opposite. And so Doug's number is obviously being called in this situation. And he stitches up,
Super glued.
super glued,
We didn't have stitches.
Ethan's head.
Yeah. So if you're ever frustrated by how I am,
Yeah, you
It's
should have
not on
seen
my
him.
fault.
You should have seen him before the incident.
yeah, totally.
And,
I was a very good person.
yeah.
It's changed me.
Anyways, my job was to hold the camera because we're like, well, we're going to need to document this.
Document
So
this
when
open head.
When you see the footage, it's just me like holding it here and then backing up like this and then getting a little closer and backing up because I didn't know how to just like zoom and focus.
Yeah.
And so my best bet.
We have I
Was to
doubt we
keep
can
moving.
find it, but we have it live as he's trying to record that. Doug comes over and he's like, tells him, he's like, oh no, dude, you turn this. And Ryan's like, whoa, okay, cool.
Whoa.
Like the first time wanting to focus a camera. This
like
was
22 years old.
yeah, making a documentary, which we
Oh.
bought that camera at Costco. We didn't set ourselves up too well to make a documentary, but our friend Brandon salvaged it because he's a genius. But these were important moments because we kind of went into this trip so like democratically. Everyone's good at everything and everyone needs to be able to do the same thing. And we have to split everything evenly. And then after that, it'd be something as simple as Ryan being like, do you want me to film? And be like, no, I'll do it.
No, we're good.
You should not do it. And it's okay. Doesn't mean you're not going to be a great person in life and you don't have a future. You're just bad
Yeah.
with a camera. I'll do that.
Yeah, I think you told me like
We
you're still
started-
probably gonna get married one day and like everything's gonna be
I
fine.
never said that.
He's like,
But
what are you talking about? Why'd you say that, E?
it was good lessons that we learned of like you're different people. So just accept what you're good at and what you're bad at. And
what
you're
you're bad
really
at.
bad at filming.
I'm very bad at it, and I think
Doug's
we're
good at super gluing.
Doug's
Found that
super
out.
glue that kind of holds this whole thing together, which is why this episode is just falling apart.
It's all over the place.
I think we're really good at celebrating the things we're good at. Just painting with broad strokes in the church, and I think that that's great. I don't think we're good at being really honest and okay with what we're bad at. And I know that because anytime we try to make fun of ourselves, I'll get 10 people coming up to me in the lobby or emailing me like, you really got to stop saying that about yourself. Like, you're great. And I'll be like, no, I'm not good at some things.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
I'm not that great.
And it's actually the most freeing thing in the world
Yeah.
to not find your identity in being good at focusing a camera.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's why
why we got Threethan.
focus his identity in. He's very good at it.
You're incredibly good at it.
So
I bet
that's
we're all in focus right now.
probably so, if I had to guess.
So anyways,
So
yeah.
yes, thank you for your question. We appreciate that you love our documentary.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. The story was great. You forgot a detail. Not only was the program for the film festival, did it say to end Earth
right.
in the newspaper, going around the town, it said that. Like that everyone
Good.
got of like, here's films at the film
Good.
festival. We were
Yeah.
sitting at breakfast and I'm like,
Reading the
guys,
paper.
it's in the newspaper to end Earth. And then we did watch a documentary about jaguars that like won an award in the end that we were up for. And we were like,
Yeah. Cinematography or
but
something.
we won. The ironic thing is we won best cinematography.
Okay. So and then we hear that and we're like high-fiving. And then I go, E, what's cinematography?
That's not a joke. That is real. He asked me that as we were accepting the award. What's,
think
what's
it's-
cinematography?
Probably because I was so good at focusing at that
It's
point.
like, you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah,
To be honest, you didn't really win this award.
Yeah. I'm the only one that shouldn't celebrate this at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, it just has Doug, Matt, Brandon, and my name on it, not yours.
If there was something about like the story structure, then great. But
Yeah.
cinematography was not me.
You're not a cinematizer.
No.
That's
awesome.
not a real
Oh man, that trip was so fun.
It was incredible.
We were looking at some pictures from that weekend.
Yeah,
Crazy.
so much fun.
What was that? 2015?
The film festival was,
Yeah.
beginning of 2015. Idlewild, California.
Do you guys struggle with that like year because it was very awesome to not try to live in the good old days of that year? Because I
That's a
know you talked
very
about
good
how you
question.
like to keep recalling it because it was an amazing trip. But how do you not live in the good old days of that?
The more than the years of the film was the actual year itself of traveling. I think has been the hardest year for us to not always look at it as like that was really the peak.
Yeah.
But what's cool is there was a period of time in college where the only dream, the biggest thing we could think of was going on that trip. But then we came home. So then the next biggest thing was telling the story through the film. And then we went to some film festivals and it didn't like go viral or get all over the world like we hoped it would. So then we moved on and then it was planting a church. And then we did that and it started. And you're doing that every week.
Yeah.
And so I think we've learned over the years to stop seeing like that one big thing and once we get there, but instead to just enjoy each piece of whatever God has next in front of us. And 2012 now for me is like the genesis of my transformation story, of when it really like took root and God humbled us down, broke us down in every way to build us, start building us. So I look at it very fondly because of how many lessons I learned and how fun it was and the travels and the really hard parts and how much we learned. But I'm not the guy now that's like just waiting for someone to bring up like missions or Haiti or Africa or whatever and be like, oh, you know what? You know what me and my buddies did? It's just now it's very personal of like a really fun thing that we share and a really important thing for me to reflect on man. And that's when God first showed me that. That's when I first learned this lesson.
Yeah, because the heart posture going into it was at some level, we're going to go do this radical thing and it's going to change everything.
Yeah.
Like we're going to save the world.
Yeah.
You know? And by the time you're flying home and you see the immense amount of weight that comes with being a part of a broken, fallen world, you start to realize that you're really not that important, but that's actually incredible news. And that's kind of what I was trying to get at with my fifth point is you have to first realize that it's not all on you, to then realize that the people right in front of you and the way that you treat your coworkers and the way that you treat your friends and your family, like that has infinite significance to it.
Totally.
You know, and the trip really taught me that. I think all of us that lesson.
There's the famous parables type story of the guy on the beach that's covered in starfish.
Yeah.
And he's one by one throwing them back in the ocean.
I'll be the other guy.
So the other guy comes up.
Mister, how could you possibly make a difference for all of these starfish?
Well, I may not make a difference for all these starfish, but made a difference for this one.
Now I get it.
That is an important
And
lesson.
scene.
And scene. Yeah, on this episode, Ethan and Ryan act very well. That was a humbling reality of that year of like, oh my gosh, to actually change this entire world and stop human trafficking and to fight poverty and all this stuff. Like this is going to take everybody. It's going to take way more than 4 guys who are radical in their faith out of college. I have seen God show how the body of Christ can attack those things.
Right.
And it takes some weight off your shoulders, but also like invites you into inviting others into it, where now our church gets to fund things we couldn't have dreamed of back then, of like, how can we like sustain and help this home for these girls who've been rescued out of trafficking? Well, now we can.
Yeah.
Now we have a church that can financially support that, resource them. So it's very cool to see how God's like, I'm going to show you the things in the world that are going to bother you.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be able to fix them by yourself. But you can, when you enter into the body of Christ and invite some others with you, you can make a difference for those 40 girls or for that starfish or whatever. So
yeah, those are always our favorite moments of the church, is when we get to send those checks or help those people in those ways.
Yeah.
It's really when you start to piece it together, walking in step with the Spirit over a long period of time, it really is crazy how much God can do in and through your life. And I'm talking, that's true about you, but I'm talking to anyone listening to this.
I wish you were like, I'm not saying that to you. I don't mean that for you.
No, you know. But our listeners,
I'm allergic to starfish.
But the afterthinkers,
they don't like me.
My goodness. No,
Come on,
but for real, man.
Comment below something.
When you learn to just play the long game, man, comment below something.
It
It really is cool. That's all.
It is. Let's talk about your 5 mindsets for more.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really brilliant way to start the series, because before you can actually step into more, you first have to have the mindset for it.
Yeah.
Number 1, God doesn't love me. Just clip that out of context. That'd be sad. And the truth is Christ died for me.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, everything starts there, right? So I preached about Mark chapter 2, where Jesus is having dinner with Levi, the tax collector. And all the Pharisees are like, what are you doing? Why are you hanging out with this guy? And they have too small of a mindset for what Jesus is trying to do. And so Jesus invites them to think bigger and to have a new mindset for more. And that's where he says, nobody pours new wine into old wineskin, or else it'll burst. And to me, I've always seen that as, you need a new mindset. You need a new wineskin for the new wine, for the more that God wants to do. And the starting point for that has to be that God actually loves you, that Jesus loves you enough to die for you.
Yeah.
Because if you don't first get that, the other 4 that I talked about, like, stand a chance
Yep.
with, right?
What
And so
was the moment where you'd say that went from theory to reality in your life, that it like kind of really clicked of like, okay, he actually did that for me,
yeah,
and that's going to change how my life looks from here.
we got a few of them. Do you have one?
Couple as well.
Um,
Sure do.
One of them was on the trip in Fiji in April,
Mm.
where I was feeling so overwhelmed that I was like hyperventilating on this pew in that church in
Yeah.
Fiji that
Oh,
we were
yeah.
staying in.
Mhm.
And you guys were just next to me, like telling me to breathe, I'll tell the whole story another day. But was very much feeling the weight of like, well, I want to make a change. I want to be the change in the world. And I can't seem to be able to do that. And I felt like in that moment, God was like, hey, bud, I don't need you to do that. I'm doing that.
Mhm.
Let's start from a place of I love you and I have a plan for your life. And then let
Yeah.
me be God. Let God be God.
Mm.
That was I've learned that lesson probably
Yeah.
58 times,
Have to come back to it a lot. The night that I like look back on as the night I put my faith in Jesus as my savior and things started to shift. That night, what I said to the group I was with when I made that decision was like, I don't fully get this, but what I know is if Jesus really did this for me, I need that.
Mm.
And so I'm just going to accept it. And then I think for the next couple of years was that acceptance process of like, I clicked that night, like I need his grace. I'm not going to be able to save myself. I can't undo what I've done.
Yeah.
Not going to make up for it. So if that's real, then I know I need it. And now I need to go seek him out of what that looks like for my life. I think the year that we were traveling, there were multiple moments, but realizing like how badly I wanted other people to grasp that. So for instance, in Fiji and India, we spent a lot of time with people living in Hinduism in a very dark fear that if I don't do enough, the gods are going to come for my family. My kid's going to get sick. They live in such fear. And all I wanted was for people to get like, no. God already loves you and you can never earn it or deserve it, but Jesus came and he died for you. I wanted them to grasp the gospel so bad so they could be free. And it kept feeling like God kept putting a mirror up with those moments going, so why wouldn't that be true for you? Why can't you accept that for yourself? You know it and you want it for somebody else. It's time for you to actually grasp it. And right out of that time was when the crew traveling, we had talked through so much of our crap.
Yeah.
Our past, our regrets, relationship stories, all that stuff. Yeah. And it just felt like this constant word vomit of getting all this stuff out to finally go, okay, I've now dealt with it. He already did. So now I need to release that stuff and truly believe the grace of God is real for me. Because if I don't, I'm going to continue to live as this person who doesn't really have an ability to change the world or have impact because I don't actually believe the truth of what I'm telling somebody else is true for me. So I need to accept the reality of the grace of God and not think I'm some case study he can't figure out. Like, I don't know if my blood covers that guy.
Yeah.
A lot of that also comes through reading the Bible because you're like, well, if all these guys, Jesus really loved them, I fit in there. So
an early draft of the sermon, it was, I know God forgives me, but I can't forgive myself. And I just ran out of time. But that's really what was happening to us is we knew and we could preach. We would like go do a night revival somewhere. And then we would come back and like, we knew that we would like preach about how God forgives us. And then we would act to each other like we don't forgive each other and that we don't forgive ourselves,
Grace is such a hard concept for a human being to grasp.
It's so hard, man.
It's so counter to us.
And so much of what was happening is we were learning to forgive ourselves. Learning what's true, what's always been true.
Yeah. I've said it on here. I say it to people when I baptize them, the scripture that's quoted from Jeremiah, I think in Hebrews, when God says, I will like make a new covenant with them and I will remember their sin no more. I want to say that every day to everybody I can. You're not just forgiven. He also like, God just doesn't have room for that anymore. He doesn't remember it. He has dealt with sin with finality. We are the ones who keep bringing it back up, where it started to feel like God's looking at me like, why do you keep bringing this up to me, man? I told you I forgave you. That's in the past. I'm not thinking about that every day. I don't have room in my economy of stuff that I am focused on for that because I already paid for that. So why are you continuing to make yourself pay for it and bring it up over and over again?
It's great.
So out of that, then you had, I'll just list them out. nothing works out. Nothing ever works out the
Yeah.
way it should, how I want.
Yeah.
But the reality is God works all things for the good of those who love him. Number 3 was those were the good old days. The reality is we are in the good old days, talking about being present in the moment we're in. Number 4, this is just always how it's been in my family. But the reality is I'm a new creation in Christ. And the last one, nothing matters. But the reality is what you do has eternal significance.
Yeah.
Which of those for you is your biggest takeaway? Because you challenged everybody, pick one. What's the one for you that you're like, that's what God's talking to me about right now?
Well, I have to cheat and pick 2. Call me Panera.
I knew it.
Another sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Panera. They have the You Pick 2. I
And-
did that Saturday night, and I had a great 2 that I picked.
Oh, you didn't listen to my sermon, apparently.
Got to be a better way to say that. All right, keep moving. Comment below if you got it.
Here's the 2 for me, and here's why I get 2 is 1 has been like a lifelong journey for me.
Okay, which is?
Is the nothing matters, and then but the one that I'm really working on intentionally right now is that number 2 is that brace for impact, because nothing ever works out. I had a great day on Friday. The sun was out, the birds were chirping. It felt like spring. And it's just a time of year I always like. We had some great time with friends, had a great lunch. And then a creative project that I've been trying to figure out for 2 years was like clicking for me. And then typically on Friday night, the sermon is I'm in a bad place with my sermon. You know.
Oh, I know. I'm there every couple weeks.
Where it's just like, this doesn't make any sense anymore. I quit.
Nobody's gonna respond.
Nobody's gonna like this.
Terrible.
Nobody's coming back.
Yeah.
But I worked on it, and then I went for a walk, and I was like, I really like this sermon. And there was a piece of me that wanted to like brace for impact. Like, oh no, this is too easy. It can't be this easy.
Yeah.
Because no movie is ever this easy.
Right.
But that's why I say Hollywood has conditioned our minds for the brace for impact mindset, where as soon as things start going good, we brace for impact because we think things are going to fall apart. And it's great storytelling, but it's bad theology.
Bad theology. And
so as I was going for the walk, I was like, no, God, thank you for a great day. And I'm really excited for another one tomorrow. And
awesome.
I thank you for what this new season that I'm stepping into.
I feel like I tell people more and more in meetings, like, hey, you need to stop waiting for God to pull the rug out from under you and just accept blessing in your life, walk in favor, and expect good. Because that is so much of like our human nature is always like, wow, things are going a little too good.
Yeah.
What do you mean? If you have a God who is in control of everything and showers down the things of heaven on you.
Dude.
So what we normally do is almost like find a way out of the good times, like self-sabotage, you know, like, well, maybe I'll just beat him there and I'll mess something up because there's no way things could actually be this good. And I wonder if we actually believed God had our best in mind every day, how great our lives would be compared to the ways we find our way away from what he's trying to do because we just don't believe we deserve it or that it couldn't actually work out for good. Whereas it's like, you're about to preach the gospel and God downloaded something great to you.
How could it go
because he
bad?
wants you to give him glory. So it doesn't have to be like, this is something bad's coming. Or like bad things happen in threes. I'm like, I've had bad things happen in ones. Like it's not.
Please stop.
We just come up with all these narratives
if
to
there's
try
any
to just.
therapists listening to this, please stop telling clients that bad things happen in threes. That's not true. Sometimes, but sometimes it happens in ones. Or twos or fours.
Tens.
Sure.
And you know what? Also, good things happen all the time.
All the time. I wonder how often Christians go back to sin and self-sabotage because we feel more comfortable in the repentance, like, God, I'm so sorry, than we do in the, no, everything's just good right now.
Yeah, no, totally.
Headspace.
I mean, the Israelites all through the desert are going, we should be back in Egypt. Let's just go back there. It was better there in slavery and bondage. Well, it was better there just because we were somehow...
Yeah, what?
Things were...
Making bricks every day?
Right. But now you have a new fight in front of you, and there's actually favor and possibility in front of you, but that can be scary too. So you just would rather not even have the chance. But that is human nature. So stop waiting for the rug to get pulled out from under you. Yeah. Like if your life is in a great season, embrace it and enjoy it. Don't ruin it or sabotage it because God does want to bless you. Yeah. That might be like because of so much prosperity type teaching, and a lot of it is not biblical, the pendulum swings to like, so
So
everything's going to suck and be terrible.
So-
That's what being a follower of Jesus is. I'm like, that's also not true.
Right.
You're going to have suffering, you're going to have prosperity, and in between is just going to be life, and you're going to have to navigate through different seasons. But it's
And-
almost like we feel more holy, like
Yeah.
undoing the good parts of our life.
even in the prosperity, there's some poverty, and in the poverty, there's some prosperity.
Yes.
In other words, like you could have the best day ever. I had a great day on Friday. There were still hard moments, or you could be going through the darkest season,
Mhm.
and there's still like things to laugh about.
Yes.
Both are
Yes.
true always.
Yeah.
you
And
know?
a lot of people also, I think, they expect bad. They expect things to go haywire because they always have.
Yeah.
I'm like, but you're following Jesus now. So you're actually in a new life.
Yeah.
This is different now. So you have to have new expectations of a new life, right? When you move somewhere, you change jobs, or someone enters your family or whatever, things have to shift and change. It's like, well, the savior of the world just entered your life. So now things are going to look different. So don't expect how it was before to be how it is now. But I do see that in a lot of people, and it's logical. Well, my family's always been this way. We've always had these patterns. My life has always just been a storm. Like there's always just crap, going on, whatever. I'm like, okay, but if you're walking side by side with Jesus, expect that to change. Or even how you go through those things to change. So we need to raise, there was a conference we were at, and there was like mini sermons, and this guy came out for like 10 minutes, and he's like, raise your expectations for God and lower your expectations for people. It was for pastors. So that was very profound and helpful. But if you do that, then the storms, which generally have to do with other people and circumstances and stuff, you go, I kind of know how people are, but I am raising my expectations for what God can do in my life, because I can read about the amazing blessings and amazing stories of how he brought people out of the pit and into a new season and a new life. And in the end, Jesus is making all things new. So let him do that in your life today as well.
Mhm.
That's it.
Kayla, what's a mindset that you took away?
I would probably two. I know you also said pick one, but I think the good old days is hard for me. Just because I like change, but I also don't at the same times. Like I like when routines or things like that are like consistent. And I get sad when things like that change. And then also like what you said in your sermon, like don't live off the scraps of what God did. That just like was like such like a blow to like me. I was like, whoa, that's like really good, because sometimes you'll like have like a really cool moment, and I'll just like keep reliving that like moment with God or moment with somebody, and instead just being like, that was really cool. I will do the Jordan River, well, I'll call back to that, but I don't need to like live off of that. So I thought that was like really good. And then yeah, like raising my expectations, like getting my hopes back up is something that I'm trying to work on, like for like this year, is not always just bracing for impact. Like I need to get my hopes up in a good way, not like in a, bad illogical way, but like actually like being like, no, I think God could do this, and not having to be like,
Wow.
but if you don't, like, it's okay, like it's fine. I'll be
Yeah.
okay.
That's really well said. The amount of times we give God like outs,
Yeah.
like just in case. The classic Christian one is, if it's your will, in
Yes.
prayers.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I get the heart behind that.
Yeah.
Also, God knows. God doesn't need reminding.
He knows his will.
Yeah. I hear that all the time. I see that in myself as well. It's like, why are we so afraid of being disappointed that we prayed big and then it didn't happen?
It's funny because my sons expect that I will do literally anything that they won't dream. Like they will ask for the moon. They'll ask for food and snacks mostly that are like, we don't have that in our house. Like I can't, whatever. But I'm their dad, so they're always like, he'll do it. Like, hey, Dad, we want this. Can you do that? Like Zeke has such an imagination.
We need some fresh bison. Could you go kill one real quick?
He will come up with stuff that I'm like, how do you think I can do that right now? He asks me all the time because of Threethin. He's like, can we just get a Tesla? And I'm like, I mean, probably not. Unless if you don't ever want a car someday. But it's like they expect that their dad loves them, so he's just gonna. Why not ask for the moon, right? And I feel like that's how we don't pray often with God. It's like there's all the things Jesus says, like be like the persistent widow. That's like, I will bother you until you give me what I need.
Or when
he's like, do that.
He goes,
come on.
What kind of good father, if you ask for an egg, will give him a scorpion or whatever?
I love when he starts that and he's like, and even though you are evil, you in a sermon, you one time you stop and you're like, thanks, Jesus. Okay. Moving on. Even though you are, we'll just give you a snake instead of, whatever.
Like it's a pretty simple takeaway. Like ask for what you want.
Yeah. And then if it's something that you shouldn't have, God won't give it to you.
And great.
And that's how you find
and
out.
That's wisdom. And
you should be grateful.
We'll be grateful for that.
But we have such a societal karma view to everything that we kind of apply that to God, even though he does not operate in karma. Karma sounds great in theory when it's, I'm going to put something good out into the universe and something good's going to come back to me. Well, that doesn't work. It's not real. It rains on the just and the unjust. But also,
it's got no space
if
for
that
grace.
is true, we have seen in other cultures, then you don't help that person in poverty because that's their karma. That woman is a sex slave because in a past life, she earned that karma. So you don't actually like karma. You think you like karma. You don't like karma.
Played out to its logical conclusion, it's pretty dark.
It's evil.
Yeah.
And yet we have such like an Americanized version of like, yeah, man, do good and good comes to you. And then people are disappointed when it doesn't work like that.
Well, I did good.
So then it lowers your expectations and then you find faith in Jesus, but you kind of assume he's like karma or he's like the gods or whatever other faiths you've been around. So it's like, well, I mean, I can try, but it probably doesn't work out that way because you've been disappointed by a false belief.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're encountering the one who has all the authority in the universe and you get to ask him and go to him for things. That should be different. But I think all of our societal views water down our faith in Jesus and what he could actually do in our lives if we went to him like a persistent person and asked him and believed that he could do it.
So it becomes, well, I fasted for 21 days, God. So where's my answered prayer?
Yeah.
And then 10 days later, you're like, I guess it didn't work. And what I want to say to that person is, no, keep asking, keep pressing in.
Right.
21 days was part of, you're going to continue to see the fruit of those 21 days for the rest of your year.
Yeah.
But keep being persistent in prayer, whoever that's for.
To take it back to our world famous documentary, I felt a lot of disappointment at the time of God, we gave a year of our lives and then another year to make this film. And it went to some film festivals and that was cool. And it reached that guy in Idlewild and other stories like that. But we're like, we want to change the world, God. And we laid everything out for you. And it didn't reach what we thought it should. Okay, well, 10 years later, I can look back and go, now you guys support Pastor Timothy in a way that you certainly didn't back then. You get to be a part of stories, but I was working something bigger than you could see at the time. So find contentment in what God is doing right now, even if you don't have the answer yet, because he is working. And sometimes it's maybe not in the ways that you want, but it is in the ways you need. And then ask away. Think of him truly like the most loving father because he is, who has infinite ability to deliver to you because he does. And in his will and in his goodness, he wants to hear from you and partner with you in your life. And with that kind of faith and these kinds of mindsets, I think people will truly experience the more, so to speak, of what God has for them. So, great sermon.
Thank you.
I hope that it practically shifted something for every person that heard it.
Real quick, is that the one that stuck out to you the most?
Man. Gosh, I just love them all so much.
Well, you need them all. I was preaching directly to you. That's why I was making eye contact with you the entire time.
Yes. Oh, that I did feel awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one thing I loved about it is we joked about you jokingly say nothing matters all the time. Yeah. The 7 Frequencies book that we read and stuff, it talks about your kind of primary type of a maven, that your shadow side, and you alluded to it, you didn't put it in terms of the book because no one would know what you're talking about, but is nihilism. Yeah. Like when you get into a dark place that it's like, screw this, nothing matters at all. And I think that is such, I felt that one the most probably just for like people at large. Because I think people are losing faith in every institution on earth, the government, the medical world, pharmaceutical, all this controversy and all these things coming out of that was actually really corrupt and that's not done right and that's bad. And people are getting so fed up where it's like, who can I trust? I can't trust the news. I can't trust politicians. I can't trust anybody. And so why try? Everything I'm going to put my effort into, it's probably going to get put in the hands of a corrupt person. And why do I even work? Why do I give? Why do I whatever? I can't trust. None of this matters in the end, which is a really dark, sad place to get to. So I think it was a reviving of that want in everyone to actually make a difference with your life and be a part of world change, to go, let's just remember that everything does matter and it does have eternal significance, from that conversation with that person to the sermon that you preach, the film you make. whatever your craft, whatever your job, people around you, it really, really does matter.
Let's go.
I think that's the shot in the arm that the church at large really needs right now in the face of a very apathetic and disappointed world.
Man. Really well said.
Very good.
There it is. That's
So-
a good episode.
That's a good episode.
And that's a good
You
and
that'll
you
be
know
the
what?
title.
E?
That's a good episode.
That episode matters.
Yes, it does.
Uh-huh.
Shout out in our last moment to all you afterthinkers that listen,
Yes.
comment, join us every week. We love you. And
Truly.
share this with somebody
So
else.
fun that we get to do this.
They should comment what they think the documentary should have been.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
Give us
comment
your-
what we
your
should have
best
named our
title.
documentary.
Uh-huh.
There's a trailer, so you don't have to watch the full thing to get the gist.
Oh.
And I just realized that you probably the good old days thing, because you're no longer like a fresh new podcaster. You've been doing it for a
Yeah.
while, and it's always
Yeah.
hard not to think about the first couple episodes
Yeah.
of like,
Oh, man.
that was the good old
so
days.
True.
But I hope today re-energized you to remember
Yes.
this is the good old days,
Yes.
episode
Yeah.
74.
74 is
74 is basically number 1.
That's right.
And 75 is coming next week, which we're doing something special for.
Oh, we better.
because it's episode 75.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but we're going to do something special. I can promise you that.
3/4 of the way to
Yeah.
100.